Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook. Harmonious World is inspired by a quote I heard in lockdown from the late great Quincy Jones, which said, "Imagine what a harmonious world it would be if everyone shared a little of what they are good at." And this is all about me chatting with musicians about what they are good at. Alongside Harmonious World, you can read my reviews of albums and live gigs, and that's all on hilaryseabrook.co.uk now, rather than on the Blogger site. So what you're listening to now is Ebony Light from Still, the new album from pianist Ann Sweeten. Ann is a Steinway artist, and you can see why. Her playing and composing is just beautiful. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Ann Sweeten.
Hi, Hilary.
Hi, Ann. I've really enjoyed listening to Still.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful album. So this is the latest in a sequence of albums of your playing.
Right. I mean, I'm a little vague because I'm already working on a new album. So
that's the way to do it, isn't it? Just keep producing work of which you are proud.
I'm always composing. I'm always got ideas and things. And so when they come to me, I'll sit down and start a piece and whatnot. But I do have recording date for November already. So we're full steam ahead.
Excellent. And when you tour, do you play, when you perform live, do you play mainly stuff from the new album, or do you play a mixture of your existing tracks?
I always try to give a cross section of my work from all the different albums, but a typical concert is about 80 minutes without interruption. But having written almost 200 scores, it's getting harder and harder to give a little bit of each album. So, but most of them are represented.
Yeah. So Still is
Yes.
is the latest one, and that's out now. This feels like a suite. It feels like a collection of tracks that go together. Was that your intention when you started, or did it just happen that way?
No, it just happens that way. I mean, in general, yeah, each of my albums is represents a chapter of my life. And so often the compositions will flow into each other because they are an outpouring of what I may be experiencing at that point of my lifetime. So there's a flow, a natural flow coming from me and living my life of that chapter. So a lot of them have that. And it's also critical to get the right flow between each piece when you finally decide the order of how you want it to be listened to. But the intent has always been, my album is something you sit down and listen to in its entirety. I mean, we're in the streaming age, but that's what makes me so frustrated, because people will just say, "Oh, I love this, I like that," and it's just, but the whole feeling is to listen to the whole thing so you have an experience in totality.
Yes, indeed. And one of the things I really like doing when I'm listening to albums now, particularly, is to listen to them in the order that they appear on the listing of and so even if I'm listening to it online, I'm still listening to it in order, if you like, because that's how the artist intended it, isn't it?
Well, it is for me. I mean, a lot of people are releasing singles now, and ultimately they may put out an album containing all those singles. But again, you're only having the experience of one thing, and it's, I'm old school. I like the whole collection.
Yes, and you've got a beautiful cover, haven't you? That's a lovely image.
Well, my husband is a professional photographer, and he has done all my CD covers, the images for the liner notes. when I am in concert, he'll be my AV guy. So he's extremely talented and has a beautiful vision. So we
Yeah.
collaborate. Once I have my pieces and I've written my liner notes, he'll read them, we'll talk about them, and then he'll go through his stock and see what might fit with that. And if he doesn't have it, he'll go out and shoot it.
Very good.
Or
Well,
he'll
that's
find it. He'll find it. And then we talk about it and decide on the cover. And once the cover is nailed, you kind of then you have a thematic feel. So then you can pull from, you know, images that support that.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. At this point in the podcast, I'd really like to play a clip from Waiting for Fireflies because that
Ah,
is my
yes.
favorite track.
I love it too.
When did you write that and what inspired it? Because it's a very specific thing, Waiting for Fireflies.
Oh, yes. Well, ever since I was a child, I was just fascinated by fireflies. And, waiting for them in the summer when it got to be dusk and they start to come out and, these little flashes of light, it's just so magical. And I had that image in my mind about waiting for them. And I'm at my age now, I still get the same excitement of seeing them when they first come out in the summertime. And I tried to embody in the music their flightiness and the flashes of light and just this. Sometimes they start out and it's just one flash here, one flash there, and then all of a sudden the forest is alive with light, and the flowers and all of that. So it's kind of emanating from that, trying to embody the vision in the music.
Yeah. It strikes me with listening to your music that you're very in touch, you're very close to nature.
Yes, and I would definitely say that because I try to embrace the visions of nature, the beauty of nature, that my work is very impressionistic.
That's not to say that you're literally portraying something, but that it has that feeling, doesn't it, of
Yes, yes.
whatever it is that you're talking about. How do you decide when you're composing which ones are going to get an orchestral treatment and which ones are just going to be solo piano?
Well, it all comes down to, I mean, the piano is the foremost instrument. I mean, I'm there. I could do it solo or I could do it orchestrated because there's a very strong driving melody in every case. And some of them call for an instrument to punch the texture that I'm looking for. Whether it be a string or a cello for the mood, the somberness. And when I got to Autumnal Breeze, the piano is all over the place trying to create these breezes. And I was just like, nothing more is needed. It's been said. Sometimes additional instrumentation is just like overwatering the flower pot. And sometimes it's just absolutely exactly what that plant needed or that stew needed, a little spice here, a little spice there. But it's always to punch what the piano is trying to deliver and say, just lightly, not overkill.
Yeah. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about your story, about how you got to where you are now?
Oh, my word. Loaded, loaded story. How long is this podcast?
It'll be as long as you like, but the sort of kind of what makes you the musician that you are, really.
Well, I'll start with the fact that at a very early age, I expressed interest in music and dance, and I started playing the organ when I was 6, the Hammond organ, because I had asked my mother if I could have a little toy keyboard because I had seen one at my cousin's and I was absolutely enamored with it. I mean, it was just about this big, nothing,
Yeah.
just basically a horrible piece of equipment, if you can even call it that. But it got my attention. And when I came home and told my mother, I was hoping that maybe at Christmas time I would get a little toy keyboard. And instead, I got this big Hammond organ. And I walked into our den where the Christmas tree was, and there was this big Hammond organ. And I like that day I started playing it. And I couldn't reach the pedals. I was so little. So first year I just stood and played, and my mother got me teachers and stuff. And she was always watchful to see what interests I had. And as soon as she saw that, she wanted to give me those opportunities. The same thing with ballet. And so the two, have been alongside most of my career. And I went off and did, a good probably 20 years of musical theater as a professional actress, singer, dancer. And I was also releasing albums at that point. And it was never a conscious decision just to say, well, I'm not going to do musical theater anymore. It was just sort of like the music and the response of people when I was releasing albums was so incredible. I mean, they were so touched by what I was doing, and I found that that was the greater reward. You're on stage, you're singing someone else's lyrics, someone else saying someone else's lines.
Yeah.
You're being directed. It's only your performance to a degree because
Right.
you didn't create the material behind the performance. I mean, there's a great deal to be said behind a great performance. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I'm just saying that you're limited. And what I didn't have with the music was I could do anything I wanted. I was, everything was me.
Yeah.
And my soul was just delivering all this stuff. And people were reacting to it and telling me how much it was helping them to heal, to find peace, to mourn a loved one, all these kinds of things. And that became the greatest reward and still is. And so I just stopped auditioning for shows and instead, started doing concerts. I'd always had, I was also doing I was doing cruise ships, cabaret, clubs with the piano and voice. And so the two were always kind of alongside each other until after the third album, I just didn't really look back anymore.
Right. And clearly there's a driver there, isn't there? There's a passion for the piano and for then the piano with other instruments, which is beautiful on your album.
Well, yeah, to your point about that and my background, I think what makes my style uh, very different than a lot of folk is that I have had so many other influences. I've had musical theater, I've danced the ballets, um, I've studied opera, I mean, and I've done the cruise ships and clubs, so I have jazz and um, pop. I even fronted a rock band for 2 years. So back in the day, and so all these influences come together to basically form my style
Mm, mm.
because
Yeah,
I always have, because I sing and because of everything that I have learned, I've always got a melody that I'm writing. It has to have a melody. It
yeah,
can't just be, da, 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 it has to have a melody because I'm singing in my head when I'm writing.
right. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I always find it fascinating because we all create music in different ways, and I love hearing the process a little bit and the drive that makes you create your own music. Which okay, so what's next for you?
Well, as I said, I'm writing a new album.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was doing a little composing just before I hit enter on the laptop. Um, and so, I have a couple more pieces I think that I need to write that I will say, flesh out this album. And I already have some of the liner notes written, and I think I know what the title is. Uh, Although I never like to say that until it's a done deal. Um, and then I go into the studio in November, and that'll be in the process of, then we'll get together and decide what instruments go where, if they do, if they don't, and whatnot. So that's the next big step.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the very, very best with it.
Alrighty, thanks. Bye bye
Okay.
now.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation with Ann Sweeten. And what you're listening to now is indeed Autumnal Breeze, which is the only solo piece on this album still. Please do share and write a review of this podcast. And thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.